Welcome back to another edition of the Bulluminati podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Bond. Joined alongside me, as always, Seth Varnador. And for the first time in a very long time, the guy behind the scenes who makes sure that this thing kind of keeps on track and stays on the rails. Make sure it hits your podcast feeds in a timely manner. Mr. Anthony Vito making an appearance on the pod tonight. How you doing, brother?
It's been a while. It's going to be a Stiegless evening tonight, so I decided to step on in. So I apologize in advance.
Some would say we upgraded, but I would.
Ooh, geez, what haven't we replaced Stieg? And at the Daily Stampede, I mean, his niche is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller.
He was a good photographer. Oh wait,
now he's just a vibes guy on a weekly pick'em show. Yeah, he actually does all right.
He does
shockingly.
The vibes have been pretty good for him.
He's not even the positive vibes only guy anymore.
That's true,
man,
yeah.
That shit sailed. I mean, if we're being honest, let's jump into the show. We've got jam pack. We got a preview Temple. We got to recap Houston. But I do want to start with men's basketball defeating the powerhouse that is the University of Tampa. That is a Division II school in South Tampa, if you guys weren't sure. They beat them 66-61. The Bulls trailed by 13 at the break this evening on this wonderful Tuesday. They were 0 for 12 from 3 in the first half. If you guys, you may not recall, USF was dead last in three-point shooting a season ago. So it doesn't seem like they've been able to fix their issues. The guy they brought in, Tyler Harris from Memphis, to be their three-point shooting stalwart, was 1 for 6. And I know it's just an exhibition game, but against a D2 school, you need a 20-6 run in the second half to come back to get back into the game. That is nearly unacceptable.
Nate, you said that they were dead last with three-point shooting. Do you mean in the conference or like what? Dead last in?
Yes, in the conference.
Dead also last in like amongst Florida teams or like the Southeast.
Also, yes, for both of those.
It may be every single qualifier you throw out, they were dead last.
Dead last in like the country.
The whole ass country. 351 schools play Division I basketball at the highest level. USF was dead last in three-point shooting a season ago, and they were pretty close to the bottom in field goal percentage overall. Same with free throw shooting. This team was horrendous, and we get to roll into a sad sack of a football season right into this basketball season, folks. If you can't get excited for men's basketball after the football season we've had, boy, I tell you what, I don't know. You're not living right.
One would say we're used to it by now. Wow. Okay, well, 66-61, that is a W, and I will choose to celebrate said W with some Cigar City High Life.
There you go.
Please sponsor us.
There you go.
What was University of Tampa's Ken Palm rating? Are they pretty high up there?
You know what? I don't. Do they even give Ken Palm for D2?
I have no idea.
I think they do. Is Sagarin football or just?
I have no idea. Sagarin does football. I don't know if he's just football. But...
I mean, good Lord.
What does Ken Palm say? That's all I need to know.
I mean, can't be great.
Who's got that sweet Ken Palm subscription? Well, I've seen the name Keyshawn Bryant, who I haven't seen yet, and apparently he's doing windmill dunks, so that's exciting.
Yeah, he finished with 9.6 rebounds tonight, 3 assists.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at some tweets. I'm not going to say from who, but I assume there was a lot more than that. But okay, exciting. I don't know. There was just a lot of like, this guy's awesome. Anyway,
some people just like to see a dunk.
Yeah, a windmill dunk's pretty exciting when you see it live. Like in real life, a dunk, especially when back in the day when like Stieg and I used to take photos under the basket and like a monster dunk would happen. It felt like 8 times more exciting when you're right there. Everyone's screaming at each other.
I went to after I blew out my shoulder at South Carolina. I went to a small D2 school in West Virginia, and they had a pretty good basketball team. West Liberty, they still are pretty good. They're just running gun threes. but we had this lineman from Steubenville, Ohio, and some guy dunked in a game, and he just went ballistic. And we're like, it was like just like a two-hand little. He's like, I've never seen a dunk in person. We're like, where did you grow up, dude? Like, you've never seen a dunk in person.
Grew up in Pleasantville, apparently.
Steubenville,
pretty close.
Not quite as pleasant. I can tell you that.
Oh man. Men's basketball, women's basketball officially kick off next Monday. It looks like I think it's a double header on the 8th. Women start at 5:30, men start at 8 o'clock at home. Go out there if you want. It's up to you. I'm not gonna force you to do anything you don't want to do. But yeah, basketball season's officially started, and it got off to a banner start here on Tuesday. So good job by all.
Sounds like it was a grand opening, grand closing for you.
It really was. I mean, I honestly, I didn't have high expectations for this basketball team going into the season, and struggling against a D2 school is just the icing on the cake that has been men's basketball for the last decade.
Will they be any good at defense?
Well, they gave up 61 to a D2 school. So maybe.
Yeah, just real quick. That reminds me when Orlando Antigua was maybe last year. They played Bethune-Cookman, needed a big come from behind effort to win that game. And I remember Colin was like, this is absolutely terrible. I said, no, well, they came together. They finally got it together in the second half, and they persevered, and they won. Maybe this means something. And Colin was like, no, you're dumb. And I was dumb because the rest of that year went terribly. So I've learned that.
I believe he got fired.
Yep. He ended up getting canned that year. And it was one of those, that doesn't exist. This isn't a movie. And as much as I want it to be.
Yes.
I, for one, am excited for women's basketball, though.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how the new pieces kind of gel with some of the girls that are still on the team. It's going to be interesting to see what the point guard position looks like without Lisa Pazan and Sydney Harvey running there, and Betty Manunga, Shea Leverett. All of those talented folks are no longer with the program. Sydney's at Belmont, I believe, in Tennessee, Nashville, and then Lisa is actually at Maryland. So that's a nice little step up for her. It'll be exciting to see what they can do at the next stage of their career. A couple girls are, I think one's at Long Island, LIU, and then the other one's at Manhattan, which is actually in Brooklyn or something like that, or Queens. I don't know. Manhattan's not in Manhattan, which is, I found that out like 2 weeks ago. So that was interesting. But let's transition to something happier. USF football lost 42-27 at Houston over the weekend. The Bulls were without Gary Bohannon as he was lost prior to the bye week to shoulder injury, which he held off having shoulder surgery last week so he could go travel and be with Trey Marsh and Byron Brown as they get their second half of the season kicked off. Nice of him. Offensively, they did some pretty neat stuff that Seth. Those first couple of drives, we were really interested in what they were doing. Travis Trickett used the bye week pretty well to his advantage, if that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, I mean, they put in the Wildcat. Obviously, I guess if you're, as you may have heard last week on the Bulluminati podcast, if you're without a quarterback for a week of practice, you've got to do some interesting things. So one of the things they did was put in the Wildcat. So they had that. They had a couple other interesting wrinkles. But they definitely used the bye week well on that side of the ball.
Yeah. Seth, you mentioned that maybe they didn't have a quarterback for the most of the bye week practices. Did something happen or?
Yeah, I think you went over it last week, but
oh, that's weird.
Yeah, concussion related issues, I believe, is what somebody heard and reported last week.
Yep.
But
Jeff Scott confirmed at his press conference that Trey Marsh got all the first team reps last week, but did not practice the week prior due to what some are saying a small injury.
There you go.
I mean, his brain just bashed up against his skull, but other than that,
it just moved a little.
Just like wished around.
It just moves a little. Just when the brain moves.
Yeah. So would one say you heard it here first? Is that the term? Maybe.
I mean, kinda.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you had really good eyes, you saw it in our chat first a couple weeks ago.
That's also true. Yeah, if you saw it, what was it after the Tulane game?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So if you saw it, you would have seen it here first. But all in all, Trey Marsh did a good job for his first career start. 24-34, 275, a touchdown. The most important thing, he didn't turn the ball over, but Seth, he missed some damn easy throws that would have extended drives. And
there were some gimmies, and there were a couple where guys bailed him out. One comes to mind. I think it was a fourth down throw to Mikey Dukes. It was at his shoelaces, and he snagged it and was able to stay upright and get the first down. So yeah, he missed a little bit, but he did fine. You go on the road, score 27 against what was supposed to be a really good defense coming into the year. You don't feel too bad about that offensively. Now they started really hot and kind of toiled around there for a little bit, but I think he played fine. It's your issues are really on the other side of the football, and I don't know if there's anything you can do to fix those, unfortunately.
Yeah, this defense was kind of atrocious from start to finish. Houston kind of bailed them out on 2 fourth down plays on 4th and 1 that they could have gone for, and they most likely would have converted. But,
yeah, I don't understand. Unless it's on like your own goal line, like BYU earlier in the year, I think went for it on like their own 30.
It's under 3 yards. I like my chances. Just look at all the defensive linemen that are out. I mean, at some point.
Yeah. And if they would have, they basically stopped themselves by not continuing to go. If they went for both those, I think they get them.
Yeah, they decided to punt on. It was 4th and 1 from their own 34, and then it was. I mean, this one not nearly as egregious. It was 4th and 1 from their own 25, which I get. I mean, but even still, I mean, you were kind of rolling going into the second half. I think it was 28-14. You kind of knew USF gave you their best shot, and there was really not much else to be scared of. So you punted away there. USF did, I think, go down and score that next possession. But even still, Houston didn't feel threatened enough to even think about punt to go for it in those situations. And that's just kind of where USF football is at this point. Nobody's going to feel threatened by them. Their defense can't stop a nosebleed. They're tissue paper thin now. Antonio Greer may not be back for this season. Jeff Scott said on Tuesday, Jaron Mangum may not be back this season. But
was the Greer? Did he mention? I want to make sure I understood this correctly. Did he mention that Greer, they're looking at the possibility of bringing him back next year?
Correct.
Okay.
So
for doctorate?
Yep. Dr. Tony Greer.
I'd be a second.
Yeah. So he came in 2017?
He'll get a specialization.
Because him and Boyles came together. Might have been strong second class.
So 18. So I remember he was there in the spring. He didn't. I remember distinctly that he was not suited up for the spring game. That's how I remember.
Yeah, he played the year before because I remember going back and watching them play against Temple, and he was pretty light. And I was like, "Who's this guy?" He looked because he was a true freshman.
He was a small,
like 200 pounds. Yeah,
he was a really very small. He was a small guy,
and I'm shocked how good he was the next year watching him play.
That's right. 2018, he was out of Atlanta. That was the year where they went into Georgia and got a lot of recruits. I didn't realize he was a 2-star. I would say he filled out a lot more.
Yeah, I would say he's probably a 3-star at this point, mid threes, like an 8. I would give him like a 0.85.
If he transferred, he'd probably get a 3. Yeah, if he was in the portal,
yeah,
he'd get a high 3-star rating. Probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Keith Boyles is also 18. He was a mid to high star, 3-star that 2018 class.
Yeah, he's been Greer's been crazy productive. So
yeah, those guys who are productive going to the portal, they kind of get a bump, especially when you're just like a decent human being and you're not leaving for nefarious reasons. See Brenton Cox and Vito's cat.
Hello to the podcast. There's no stopping the podcast. I have a question. Well, I have 2 questions, but the first question is that USL felt like they were doing pretty well, and then it was 14-14, about a third and 7 at the Houston 23.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly Joyner runs for 2 yards right up the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And my thought was, okay, you're just trying to set up the next play. You're going to go for it on 4th down. Then Spencer Schrader comes up, and in true ball don't lie fashion, misses the 31-yard field goal.
Nathan asked about this after the game, and I thought the answer was kind of bizarre.
Oh, please! I mean, and give me. I know my thoughts about it. Give me your thoughts about the answer from Jeff Scott.
If I recall correctly, the answer was. It seemed like the answer was. Yeah, we were going to go for it, and then we decided we weren't going to go for it. And then if I would have realized that my defense wasn't going to get a stop, I probably would have gone for it. Like, what have you been watching this year?
Yes.
They ain't getting a stop.
At what point, even during this game, do you think your defense is going to be able to stop this Houston offense?
And just because you see one doesn't mean there's a lot more coming, right? Like it's you got to kind of realize going in the game, hey, we're not getting a lot of stop unless you come out and you're just like shutting them down from the get-go. But they kind of did whatever they want to get those 14 points.
Literally right before Marsh was feeling it. It felt like he was feeling confident. He had a 29-yard pass to Jimmy Horn just previously. And there was another Jimmy Horn pass interference call that helped them move down the field. It felt like he was feeling it. Offense was doing pretty well. I was surprised by that. Then Houston marches down, scores a touchdown, 21-14. They couldn't do anything with the next drive. Houston goes up 28-14. Then that's,
it's over.
What are you going to do? Well, actually, yeah, USF did turn the ball over on downs because they went for it on a 4th and 9.
Yep.
It's things like that just make you go,
Well, that's what he was kind of like. If we would have gotten like 4 yards, we probably would have gone for it. It's like, what's the difference? Like, it's really not.
Sir, you are 1-6. Does it really matter?
I think I was like, that's a great question from Nathan. Because I always wonder what Nathan always asks a question after the game, and I'm never sure quite what it's going to be, but it's usually a pretty good one. So I like to listen to see what it is. And so he's asking the question, like, great question. Because that was kind of something that I think was getting glossed over a little bit, that decision, because it was so early in the game. But, yeah, the rationale behind it was kind of bizarre. It was a little bit strange to me that it seemed like, and you tell me if you kind of took it the same way, it seemed like he was like, yeah, we decided we were going to go for it. And then when we only picked up 2 yards, we were like, nah, we're not going to go for it anymore. And it's like, well, then you probably would have called a different play on 3rd down if I'm Trickett. And you tell me
now Trickett looks like a dunce.
If you only pick up 2, I'm not going to go for it. I'm probably going to call something different, right? If you're like, but if you tell me, hey, you got 2 downs here, all right, I'll try to sneak in a run. Maybe you only pick up 2 or 3.
Yards.
We're kicking
a couple yards and make it a little bit more manageable. And
a lot of this just feels like 2 different teams you're watching, or 3 different teams if you consider the BYU what happened there.
It's
when they're competitive against really good teams, it's because they're able to kind of keep the pace. And then the defense almost gets a shot in the arm. Like maybe there's a turnover, maybe they do something that you didn't expect. So not having the offense, which was doing successful, kind of try to keep the pace going, just then it kind of set what the defense was doing. And then all of a sudden you're down 2 scores. Now all of a sudden, how is this offense with Marsh going to come back when the defense is doing that?
And they know you got to throw the ball every down now, so they can kind of change what they're going to do defensively. I just thought it was, and maybe he's scarred because he was so aggressive, especially the first year. He was really aggressive. If you remember that first year, he was going for a lot of 4th downs. And it was kind of just like, yeah, we're going to try to win. It feels like he may be scarred from those and he's not quite as aggressive, but like you need to get that's your chance.
Pal, you need to get aggressive to save your job. So I don't really know what you're doing here, turtling up like that when you're 1-6 and
I think he's trying to.
I think back is against the wall.
He thinks I think he's trying to like just be pragmatic and make the correct. But it's like if your reasoning is that you think your defense, you thought your defense might get some stops.
Buddy, that's
newsflash. It ain't happening. Like I would definitely play it the other way. So
yeah, that was you got to assume they're not going to get a stop.
That was bizarre. That was bizarre reasoning to me. I kind of wish you'd have just said, yeah, we thought we could sneak a run in there. We decided to kick the field. We were always going to kick if we didn't get it. We thought we could sneak a run by them, and the look they were showing us. They played it well. We're just going to take our medicine and kick the field goal. Okay, I can. But when it's like, yeah, we were talking about going for it, and then we only picked up 2. Decided, nah, we're not going to go for it anymore. It's like, all right, well, that changes some things.
It feels like the play call is different then. Hey, if we got to pick up more than 3 or 4, it was very strange, and it felt like that turned the tide almost. And I hate saying that because it's like, okay, well, you had 2 drives, and then you went down the field and but I mean, you go up 21-14. You're kind of gone back and forth with them a little bit. It's gonna, but like you miss a field goal, they go right down to score. It kind of deflates the balloon totally.
Yeah, and I mean, with this team, they need any confidence they can get, and it's not coming from the defense. The offense has been the lone bright spot this season. I think they're still in the mid 60s in SP plus rankings by
ESPN. 63.
Yeah, by ESPN's Bill Connolly. Defense is like 115. Special teams is like 103 this year. So your literal one bright spot of the entire season, you're going to take off the field for a worse unit. I don't know. I am always I'll never fault a coach going for it on 4th down in plus territory. That's just
especially 4th and like 5 or less,
right? And then
convertible.
Then you come back and go for it on 4th and 9 the next possession. You say, well, after we missed it and they went down and scored, we decided we were going to go for it the rest of the game. That's got to be.
The defense is bad.
I forgot.
I had to see them. I had to see Houston go, or Tank Dell swim his way through our defense like a hot knife through butter to remember.
Oh my goodness gracious! And just some of the decision making, the in-game decision making from Jeff Scott has not gotten better this year, and it's infuriating. He's had 3 years of this, 29 games of practice of this, and he still manages to bungle almost simple decisions. And I mean, I don't know.
I think he's so tight about making the right decision that he's kind of just second guess. Like that's just when you tell your guy you got 2 downs and then you don't pick it up. You're like, you're just kind of second guessing yourself. You're just, we got to get something out of this drive. You don't want to get nothing. Like to me, that's kind of him feeling the pressure, maybe a little bit of, we've got to get points out of this drive, and that's been a pretty reliable unit. But like, just hey, if you were going to go for it on 3rd down, just go, right? Just like. Don't second guess yourself. Just go.
I feel like, and even Spencer Strader missing, I was like, I don't blame that on Spencer Strader. I just feel like that was fate. Like,
that's a ball don't lie.
Yeah, the hardcore ball don't lie. Like, field goals are failure in college football unless it's a game-winning kick. Like, that's just not how college football is played. You can't play college football like it's the NFL. That's just not how this thing works anymore. And field goals are failures, especially when you're in the plus 25, plus 23. Like, I mean, goodness gracious.
Yeah. And I don't want to bring up, Florida just because I also cover them. But like when Florida played Tennessee, they knew they weren't getting a lot of stops. So what were they doing? They were going for 4th down from the first drive. They're like, we got to keep our offense out on the field as much as possible because we're not getting many stops. So it was like 4th and 1 on their own 35, first drive of the game. They go for it. they went for fourth down. I think they went for 6 or 7 fourth downs and converted like 6 of them. And what happened? They lost the game by, I think they lost the game by 5, and they had to settle for field goals twice in the red zone.
Yeah, and field goals are failures. I mean,
Yeah.
If Jeff Scott hadn't had a history of going for it, I wouldn't be as. I was like, that's just not him. But he went for it in minus territory against Florida on a massive 4th and 1 call. So like,
perfect call too.
I mean, the Jekyll and Hyde of it all is what's so frustrating, because as you mentioned, he'll be super aggressive and then uber conservative, and then I was aggressive and it blew up on my face, so I'm just not going to do that again. That's a bad idea.
It seems like he's just kind of reaching for something to hold on. It's almost like he's still kind of reaching for his identity a little bit as a head coach, and it's hard to say this is my identity, because when you're losing, you're trying to find something that you can win, right? I'll do whatever it takes to win. So he's kind of still, I think, as a coach, even he's almost searching a little bit for what's my identity as a coach, because right now my identity is, a lot of losing. And so I think he's kind of trying to search for it too. And it's tough, like there's certain parts I'm sure he's like, you know what, my defense got to stop. If I kick the field goal here and don't go for it, I'm showing faith in them. Maybe that'll get them motivated. But then you got to be on the other side of it. Hey, they haven't stopped anybody pretty much all year. I can't, my offense is my best.
Not in this moment.
I got to put it on them, right? Like,
right.
So, but I think he's just searching, like, what can I do to, like, there's got to be some certain, operation that will get me the win, and I just got to find it, and it's just kind of eluding him, and I think he's kind of grasping a little bit for it.
And every game's a little different, and I know it's hard. I don't want to say this, but I was looking it up, and strangely enough, there's only one FBS team that's under 500 that the Bulls have played so far, and that's BYU. Everybody else is either 500 or above. Man, that's tough. Temple's going to be the first team under 500 that they're going to play all year. That's just a crazy circumstance, especially with everything that's going on. Plus, you're trying to add on to that, and you're playing legitimately good teams.
Yeah, and BYU healthy is a lot different what they are now. They've kind of gone through the year without, for a while it was receivers, now it's defensive guys. I think a little bit. Jaron Hall is probably a little hurt now too. So they're kind of a shell of the team we saw in Tampa too. So
that's just I don't know. I don't know. Let's move on. Let's look forward.
Well, hey, you know what? If you've got a bad defense, we may have a cure for what ails you this week. I mean, here's the stats. Red is bad. Blue is good. Look at the Temple offense. They stink.
Look at the USF defense. They stink.
It's a real. This is the Worstlemania of this year.
It really might be. So your South Florida Bulls travel up to Philadelphia to take on the Temple Owls at 2:00 on ESPN Plus. I'm shocked this isn't on a real channel. I hope the Sickos committee is watching this game closely. USF opened as a 6-point favorite on Sunday afternoon. It's already been bet down to USF -3. That's how much faith the bettors have in USF to win a game and win a game by more than a field goal. This Temple team is bad. Like, they are bottom of the barrel, horrific when it comes to literally everything that they do. They're averaging 15.5 points per game. They're allowing 26 points per game. They haven't done much in way of curing any of the ills that affected them and inflicted them last season, where USF rushed for a school record, like 345 yards on the ground or something ridiculous like that. They've been shut out once by Duke. They scored 3 against Memphis. Central Florida put 70 on them. They kept it close with Navy last week, which was neat, but I mean, Navy still won. They've lost 4 in a row. They lost to Rutgers. Rutgers fired their offensive coordinator not shortly thereafter.
And that's one Jeff Scott said today. This is a really good defense, but I haven't watched a ton of Temple, so I'm not going to just come out and say I totally disagree. But when you look at the offenses they've played, you just kind of were listing them. There's not like a particularly great offense on that list. Besides, UCF's pretty good, and they put up 70 points. So, is Navy's offense good? No. Duke, meh. Then
I would say the second best offense is probably Memphis that they've played.
Yeah, you got like UMass on there. I think you got a D1 or a 1AA team on there. This is not like Murderers Row that they've played. So, are there some of their defense numbers maybe inflated? I think they might be a little bit, but they're still probably a decent unit. But I'm not. Has USF ever beaten Temple in Philly?
The answer is no.
Negative. They have never done it.
For a while there, outside of the last time Temple beat USF in Tampa, it was always the away team. The home team won.
Yes.
But yes, USF has never beaten Temple in Philly, technically.
Well, there you go. Another streak that needs to be broken here.
Yep, and we're going on 1,100 days of USF not winning a road game. October 26, 2019. It's been a long time coming. We'll get to the predictions later, but Seth, if this team can't win this one, if, as the podcast name says, if not now, when?
Yeah. This is one that you kind of, before the season, and here's kind of a look at, here green is good, purple is bad. The Temple offense this is going to be quite a matchup between the USF defense and the Temple offense. I think this game is Tom Fornelli's bottom 25 game of the century of the week.
Yes.
So
I will rally for this to be the Sickos game of the week because
I think it's got a chance to get the doubleheader there to get both designations. But you see Temple's been okay against the run. USF's been a really good running team. So I would imagine this has got to be one. This is one we circled before the year as like a definite win. If it's not, I think conversations get serious, I would imagine, right? If this is not a victory, because this is a pretty bad team here. You can see their purple is a little darker than USF's purple. So it's kind of a battle of the purple here, really. But USF's offense has been pretty decent. Defense terrible. It's kind of they're kind of strength on strength, weakness on weakness in this game. But if you don't win this one, then I think it gets serious.
It's pretty rough, and I can't even say that, if they tarmac Jeff Scott, that he could go watch maybe a Phillies Astros World Series game, because they're in Houston on Saturday, Sunday. If it goes to game 6 and game 7, and as of right now, I think the Phillies are up 7-0. They've rocked Tampa zone Lance McCullers early on in this game. He's given up 7 earned runs, and it hasn't looked great. He's 5 home runs and 7 earned runs in 4 1/3 innings. Holy cow. Also,
for a pitcher that's been pretty darn good all year, playoffs are just very strange. And the Phillies, outside of this year, wouldn't have actually made the playoffs. So riddle me that.
Yep. Fun fact, I live 2 houses down from Lance's brother and sister-in-law. So that'll be awkward. Tough stuff. They did decorate their house pretty cool for Halloween, though. So that was pretty neat.
There you go.
Full-size candy bars?
You know what? I have no idea. I think they got glow sticks from them.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's a hit with the children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Olivia wore it the entire time she was trick-or-treating, so that was good. But yeah, it's seriously like this is the game on the schedule. You're like, oh yeah, you can definitely.
Yeah, Howard Temple.
Howard Temple for sure. All right,
where are the other 4 coming from if you want to make a bowl game?
Now, fine. I mean, I was just hoping for 2 more wins after that, and folks, it ain't coming. There's no shot this team wins 4 games this year. And I said in the preseason, 4 is the basement, 3 or less wins. We're going to have a conversation. And that conversation will hit hyperspeed if they lose to Temple on Saturday.
Yeah, it hits the punch it Chewy.
Right.
We're in there, baby.
That's a hold on to your butts kind of moment. Yeah. I mean, Brian Harrison got fired on Monday. 2 days after a loss. So
on Halloween.
On Nick Saban's birthday.
And I think I also saw that November 1st is actually Brian's birthday. So it's a tough few days for my guy.
My gosh.
At least they didn't wait. Now it was. I'm sure it conveniently just fell on their off day. So
Yeah.
How about the release? The press release didn't mention his name from the school. It just said we're relieving our head football coach of his duty, or looking for new leadership at the head football coaching position.
Auburn gone Auburn.
And his little blurb today that came out about when there's complete alignment, this program will do wonders. And there's that's the one thing Jeff Scott seemingly has going for him, is there is complete alignment within the university, at least on the surface. I don't know how many more losses that complete alignment will withstand.
This will be like you've been going to the chiropractor and you get in a car accident.
Yeah,
your alignment gets thrown off if you.
Yeah, a little bit. It's a little.
If you let Temple rear end you,
sir.
Yee.
So let's kind of discuss the Temple play. Quotes, air quotes, people watching, listening on the podcast, you won't be able to see it, but I'm doing air quotes, the playmakers. So their quarterback, E.J. Warner, son of Rams and Cardinals and former bag boy Kurt Warner. He's thrown for 1,500 yards, 8 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 53% completion percentage, has shown some flashes this season as he steps in. All us Tampa Bay area sports fans already are on high alert that a Warner is going to do bad things to a Tampa Bay's team. So that's always in the back of our head. And their running back, Edward Sadie, he's, 85 carries, 290 yards, 1 touchdown, 3.4 yards per carry. Not really explosive on offense, folks. They do have a couple of receivers. Jose Barbone, 38 catches, 500 yards, a touchdown. Adonis Sanders, 29 catches. Ahmad Anderson, 24 catches.
Would you like to hear a Seth Varnador connection to this game?
Oh, yes, always.
I recruited Adonis Sanders at Tusculum when I was there. I had the Low Country in South Carolina. Adonis Sanders was a receiver at Fort Dorchester. They were really good. Their quarterback, DeCarrion Joyner, is at South Carolina now. They were pretty loaded. But Adonis was super explosive, really under-recruited. I offered him at Tusculum. We ended up I left before signing day, but I think most of the staff passed on him. He ended up walking on to Georgia Tech and getting a scholarship under Jeff Collins, and then his transfer to Temple. So Adonis, nice kid, very fast.
Interesting.
So he's old because that was 26. That was 2016. So he's an older guy.
He's an old soul for sure.
Yes.
That's pretty neat. That's pretty neat, man.
We've had Coach Vonador.
What kind of connections? So this was coming out of high school, right?
Yes. Yeah, they had a team that I think they won back-to-back state championships near Charleston, South Carolina. I had the low country, so I drove up the coast. I took a week and just drove around to some big towns, some small towns, but I went and saw them because they had some dudes. They had a good offensive lineman too, but it was hard to pull kids from there because you had Newberry, that was in-state, a little bit closer. He had a couple other programs, but he's a guy. I remembered his name, kind of a unique name, and I was like, "Who's this kid? He's a freaking animal." But he'd only played like for a year, or like he hadn't played his whole career there. So, but he jumped off the film. Odom is Coach Odom's the man. Nate met Coach Odom.
I did
at the coach's clinic. Nice guy. They're doing well. They're I think they're 8-1 now. Best record in a while. First in the conference. Might make the playoffs in D2, which would be the first for them in a long, long time. So
good for
they're
them.
Doing well up at Tusculum. Yeah.
Excellent.
Good for them. Good for them. I mean, there's really not much. I mean, how many different ways can we say, like, Jeff Scott, you better win this effing game?
Can I want to bring something up when we transition out of this, but can I give you a scenario? Is there a scenario where this game pivots your opinion anyway?
No, like to keep him forever or keep him for next year?
Yeah, like make you have a different opinion of outside of just you need to win this. Is there anything that could help you?
No.
Like if he goes in the stands and like gives CPR to a baby or something, like
hands out candy to everybody. More like they go in and all of a sudden, I don't know, lights out game.
To me, I think Temple's really bad. Like for the whole season, I said I thought Temple's one of the worst teams in D1. So I'm like, if they don't go in and play really well, that's a bad sign to me. Now, I think Temple's probably a little bit better than I initially thought, but they're still not very good. Mm-hmm. So even if they go in there and crush them, I think you're still like, okay, yeah, it's Temple. They're very bad.
Yeah.
It's still, and then you're all right, do it 2 weeks in a row.
Do it against someone other than Temple.
And then, we're back to kind of waiting for next week. It's more of a stay of execution than anything.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. Like, I want to be perfectly clear here. You beat Temple, that's all well and good, but you're 0-25 against literally everybody else but Temple in FBS. So, like, do you want a cookie? Congratulations, you beat another really bad team.
Maybe a cheesesteak. But yes,
I mean, that doesn't do much for me. It doesn't move the needle for me. You could. I mean, if you put up 100 points on them, maybe put up 100 and maybe I'll change my mind.
I just be like, man, this Temple team stinks.
Wow, this team is really bad. But I would venture a guess and say that USF has the best unit in this game with their offense. As Seth, you alluded to, their defensive numbers look pretty good, but they ain't played nobody. And if they played someone with a pulse, if they played someone with a pulse, they got blown out. So it's tough to really assess what their defense is. I mean, USF put up 38 against them last year, and they were pretty not good last year
without throwing the football, really.
Right. And
Vito, I think the next week, if they come out and play, if you win this Temple game, however you win it, I think. I mean, right? If they win close, they win big. This one is basically as long as you win, it's kind of whatever, right? I mean,
I'll pivot. I'm just playing devil's advocate. Not that I have a scenario where I agree with.
But if they come out the next week and like blow out SMU,
at home,
then I think you're like, oh, okay, maybe something's cooking here.
And then you're on the road against Tulsa, who's also started out fairly strong and now is created as well before UCF. So the next 4 games are different than the rest of the schedule that's been teams over 500.
Yeah, that's what I think. Like, this one's kind of I expect them to win however they win, as long as they win. It's just for me like almost a stay of execution, I guess.
Right.
But next week, if they come out and crush SMU, then you start thinking, okay, maybe they've turned a corner here. Right. Conversely, they come out and get killed by SMU. Okay, they are what we thought they were.
Yeah.
I always think, what if, or like, how, not what if, but like, it's such a situation where that happens. And I just remember all the defensive injuries and go, it's a tough ask. It's just a tough ask. Like at some point, it's just a tough ask.
I agree. Before we get to predictions, I do want to mention, I think the one thing off the field that Jeff Scott has been able to do last year, and it's trickled and it started into this year, is he's been able to recruit really well. And Tuesday night, he gets a commitment from Anthony Muir. He's a tight end out of Duluth, Georgia, 6'3", 235. Seth, you kind of watch some of his tape.
Yeah.
Big body dude. High points
super long arms. Yeah, super long arms, big catch radius. Not like a burner, but a good frame. So once they get him, I'm not sure what the Duluth program is like, but usually just now there's some good programs in Georgia, but you get a guy in a college weight room and stuff like that with that frame, you can turn that guy into something. And as big as he is, like I said, really long arms, really tall kid. So he goes up and really can go up and get the ball in traffic. Seems to have pretty good hands. Big enough frame that he's probably a decent blocker as well. So just another, I think, good body that you can possibly turn into something. If you can kind of get him a little quicker and faster as he's here, he'll turn into a real matchup nightmare. But he's a, worst case scenario, he's a big bodied kid with really long arms and good hands that I think can turn into a player here. So really interesting prospect, I think.
Yeah, and he's I think he's a 3-star prospect according to Bulls 247. Just kind of looking at some of his offers right now: App State, Arkansas State, Coastal, Duke, ECU, Florida, Florida State, Georgia Southern, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Liberty, Memphis, Minnesota, Pitt, UAB, Central Florida. Now, how committable all of those offers are, that remains to be seen, right? But at 247 composite of 0.8689, which is pretty good given where this USF program is. Just real quick, want to look at their recruits right now. So Anthony Miller, he becomes the highest rated high school prospect to date. Followed by Connor Knight out of Hewitt Trustville in Alabama. He's the defensive lineman. Demetrius Carter Jr. He's the wide receiver from Steinbrenner, who committed.
I like that kid a lot
Thursday.
too. He has some good film. He's an interesting looking guy. He's another guy that goes up and gets it and seems to catch everything with his hands. So I think he might be maybe undervalued a little bit because his film was pretty good.
And Demetrius Carter, it looks like he just got a ranking from 247. I was literally looking earlier, and he's now at 0.8528, which is third in the class, followed by DJ Oliver, who I think we all on this show love. He's a big bruising back out of Port St. Joe.
And he's fast.
He's 6 foot 237. Like, holy cow.
I think he's a guy they have to watch. I think he's a guy that might get some other programs.
He's going to
stay sniffing around him close to signing day. So I think they're going to have their answer out for him.
Yep. And then Tawfiq Bayard, who's the brother of Kevin Bayard, who is the all-pro safety for the Tennessee Titans. He's committed. Timothy Lawrence, Fleming Island offensive tackle. He's a 83 overall. And then Braden Ramsey from Trinity Catholic, interior offensive lineman, 83 overall. And then Trey Dubick, who's the long snapper, who's a 2-star. So, I mean, we got two-star long snapper, man. That's basically a 5-star. So
that's correct.
Good stuff there. Eric Salazar, do we answer live questions? Yeah, I mean, why not?
Throw them in the chat.
We'll answer them, and
we answer depending on the question.
Definitely depending on the question.
Yeah.
Just real quick, I just also wanted to throw this out there because I take a look at it. Xavier Weaver, 539 yards through 8 games, and I believe he missed at least one, if not slightly 1.5. 115 yards per game to get to 1,000. Fellas, you think he can do it?
No.
Oh, geez. I thought it was going to be like
I think maybe
he gets like 200 against Temple. I'm just in a year that's been like this, Weaver continues continues to make grabs.
Yeah, I think he's got a shot. He's gonna have to put up the numbers this week to kind of help you on the back end there.
If he gets like 170 this week, all right, we'll have a conversation. I mean, we've talked.
I think if Bohannon was still their quarterback, you might feel a little bit better about it because he definitely liked working the ball to Weaver. But
yeah,
they're going to generate touches for him. So
it's him or Jimmy Horn. Seems like. Brian Battie at 599. He needs 125 per game to get to 1,000.
How many?
He's at 599, so he needs 100 per game, 100 and change.
That's more doable.
Who's this?
I'm sorry, Brian Battie.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, he's
I mean, he is the bell cow.
Well, he's got to be. He's going to get close to 1,000 all-purpose.
That was just strictly
easily.
Rushing.
I'll be interested to see what he is rushing and receiving. Now, if you had the kick return stuff in there, he'll get over. But
yeah. Those are two guys that, I mean, Battie and Weaver have been the glue to this offense, and they're fun to watch. So, I mean, his 2 touchdowns this past week were still very fun to watch, and great player.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things from the offseason is a question I wish I knew the answer to now is what does Xavier Weaver run the 40 in? Because if he's a good tester, he might be gone. If he's not a good tester, maybe he comes back. But you have a pretty good skilled crew coming back next year, and you got a lot of linemen getting reps now. So
let's throw up Eric Salazar's question real quick, and we'll kind of discuss that before we hit our predictions. Let's see
this one.
Yep. So Jeff Scott will remain coach for next season. Barring something unforeseen, catastrophic on Saturday. Do you think if change occurs? Do you think change would occur with the coordinators? How does this affect recruiting? Will this diminish the efforts of this year's staff? 3 defensive coordinators in 3 years. That's a tough beat. That's a tough look.
Yeah. I think Trickett's good. He's good, and he's one of your better recruiters. So there's I would imagine there's no way he's gone. So, yeah, it's all in the defense. Do you want to make another change on defense? Is it the coordinator? Is it
the corners coach?
Yeah, do you make changes on the periphery, kind of on your staff, and make some position coach changes first? I don't know. That's usually that seems to be how it goes, especially when you bring in a coordinator and don't bring in any other guys with him, right? It's not like they brought anybody with him, one of his guys, to teach this or that. So sometimes you'll get those changes in the but like you said, it would be tough to make 3 coordinator changes. But he knows better than all of us kind of what's being called and what's kind of on the call and what's on the players, I guess. So
I think a lot of it's also a lot of things change as you fire people, but what ends up happening in an off season is people retire, people move to other positions and other programs. You never know if it's someone was pushed out or someone was asked to come back. Then you make changes that way. Like we didn't know Charlie Weiss Jr. was out last year. He ended up going to Ole Miss. That changes a lot of things. So sometimes it's not just as simple as get rid of someone as much as other changes happen, and all of a sudden that's how you can make other additional changes. But yeah, I don't know if you can fire another coordinator.
Yeah, that's a tough look for what would it be? 5 coordinators in 4 years overall. It's tough. That's a tough beat.
Yeah, how many different coordinators will Antonio Greer have played for?
I guess the 3 because BJM.
Yeah, BJM was 18.
Well, if they fire him and he comes back next year.
Yeah.
He got 4 different ones in his 18 years at US. That's not too bad.
I guess that's not terrible.
Ricky's kind of Ricky Shockley about Jeff Scott's recruiting. I think Scott does do a good job of going after height, weight, speed guys in recruiting. Yeah, like he signed some guys that have kind of good traits that you can develop. He's not signing a lot of tweeners, not too many projects. A lot of it's kind of And that's kind of what you're seeing in like the save. I know this Jeff Scott's not from this tree, but the Saban tree, they always talk about verified height, weight, length, and speed. So when they get those guys on campus, they measure them, they get verified numbers on that stuff. And it seems like Jeff Scott's kind of in the same place. He gets guys with pretty good bodies or verified speed a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's done a pretty good job recruiting and identifying good profiles to recruit. Unfortunately, it just hasn't translated on the field yet.
Yeah, and I think I think we talked about it. Was it last off season? Maybe prior to the season kicking off. They weren't offering a lot of guys until they got them on campus and those 7-on-7 stuff, and seeing them in person for sometimes even the first time, just due to COVID over the last couple of years. Those camps, the football games it was a little harder to kind of get those verified things. So I think that you're probably tracking right that he's ironically a see it before he believes it kind of guy.
Yeah. No, you guys don't. It's just for recruiting, all right?
Don't take me seriously.
Let's believe it before we see it. That's all right in terms of the program, right?
Right.
Philip's got a question. How important is the Central Florida game this year from a program perspective? I guess it's important if you win, right? It kind of sends them out with a loss. That'd be pretty fun.
It'd be hilarious,
right?
Yeah, I think that's again the funniest outcome. USF loses out but wins that game.
Mm-hmm. It would be almost like
enough. Is that enough to save Jeff Scott's job?
No, he wouldn't be coaching.
I guess they lose right at Temple. We're thinking it's probably over, right?
Yeah, it's curtains if he loses the Temple game. So
do they wait the week before so you get the dead cat bounce?
It almost worked last year. That would be second funniest thing since last year when men's basketball beat the brakes off of UCF the night before my wedding.
I mean,
hilarious.
How about that?
It was just one of the weirdest things. But
so
yeah,
what do you guys think? Eric's got a question, but I kind of off his question a little bit. Now that there's transfer portal like designated periods, how heavy do you think they'll be able to get into the transfer portal? Because there were guys, like Pender who ended up, that ended up not working out. But they got on those kind of guys pretty early.
He did not come here to play school.
Yeah, they got on those guys pretty early. Whereas I know a couple of the schools in state needed D tackles, but they were in coaching transitions and things like that. Like, is that going to hurt them that they can't get on some of these guys early, you think, in the transfer portal? Or will it just be it's going to be the same alert, come back home, come closer to home?
I think it's going to be a little – I think you may lose maybe one or two guys due to not being able to get out in front of them. What I've talked to a couple of college coaches over the last couple of months, and it's kind of leading back to like you gotta make sure you hit your high school guys, because they're the ones that are going to be there for 2-3 years, and you see like guys are in the portal for a reason, and we're kind of seeing that bear out that portal's not always the greatest. Joe never didn't pan out; he got hurt. Yusuf Terry's kind of been a bust. Joffrey Brown's kind of been a bust. Mikey Dukes has been in and out. Jerry Mangum's been hurt all year. Amaris Brown, I guess, has been your best DB option. Matt Hill's been kind of your defensive linesman. DJ Gordon's really only playing because Greer got hurt, and he's been kind of. I take DJ Gordon as he's nothing like Devin White. I want to preface that he is. Like Devin White is a fantastic football player, but there's always this kind of thing about Devin White where he needs Levante David. He's like a cannon. He needs him to point him in the right direction. That's what I think of DJ Gordon. Like he needs Dwayne Boyles or Antonio Greer to kind of point him in the right direction like a cannon and just attack. I think that's kind of where I think DJ Gordon is right now. Yeah, you got to hit some of these high school kids. You got to get back to the high school recruiting while sprinkling in the transfers.
I think the one thing that's unfortunate is the kind of taking away the 25 counter, taking that limit away, because there is a definite strategy if you're at kind of a lower, if you're at a G5, just attack the high school kids and don't worry as much about the portal, because if you have the cap at 25, the bigger schools may take the transfers, and then you go in and now the high school kids that were going to them now get pushed down a little bit lower than normal, and you go up and you get some players that you usually wouldn't be able to get under normal recruiting circumstances. But without that counter, I don't know if that, guys just take guys just to take them. Like, I think Florida might be trying to get in terms of portal and freshmen, probably 35, 40 guys this offseason. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of turnover at that program. So, I don't think you can live and die in the portal, but I think there was some opportunities for G5s that might have got taken away. But if that cap gets put back on, I think going into high school ranks could be an interesting kind of recruiting strategies. Going to go away from the portal a little bit while everybody else is going to it.
I will add Mike Lofton is now a starter and has done fairly okay. I know it's hard to tell, but just thinking of transfers. But a lot of these guys were 2 to 3 year transfers from what I recall. Yeah. The COVID year helped a lot. So that's a little different than bringing someone in for a year. It looks like Bohannon will be back for another year. So
it seems like it. He that Instagram post, what was it, Monday? Sunday, Monday. Seems like he's going to be back next year, which can only help Jeff Scott's case, right? Because there is I think it may have been Ricky kind of pointed out, like there is the injury thing is real. It's just he has used up all of his excuses this year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There is a case to be made. Like, the guy who rushed for 15 touchdowns last year hasn't played. All right. And now I've got Brian Battie, who broke out. Now you can pair those two guys together. My Clemson, the guy who was a 5-star at Clemson, got hurt. My starting quarterback got hurt. My left guard has 1 foot. My left tackle broke his leg. Go on down the line. It's like one after another. My starting middle linebacker broke his hand, and then his father died. Like, there are extenuating circumstances to everything. The secondary has been decimated. There's a legitimate case that for why Jeff Scott should stay on board.
And also look at next year's out-of-conference schedule. That's probably another pitch.
I mean, you could go 3-1 in that out-of-conference schedule.
Mm-hmm.
What's the conference going to look like next year?
Hmm?
Yeah, I mean,
you don't know yet.
Your three best teams are going to be gone.
You might get a pretty favorable schedule next year too.
Last time I checked, Tulane's still sticking around.
Oh, but I mean, are they guaranteed on your schedule? Like, you might get a pretty good draw. It depends on how they want to split these things up, and that's something I don't think we've heard yet. But, like, you're probably going to play Charlotte. Cool.
Awesome. Big time fan.
Probably going to play FAU. Probably pretty good. Like, that's probably pretty good. But yeah, like, I think you're hoping UTSA, when they come in, like, if they have, you're hoping there's divisions or something, UTSA is away from you.
Yeah.
Because I think it kind of behooves the conference to have USF be really good and have UTSA be really good. And then you have 2 really good programs in the 2 biggest football states in the country.
That'd be nice.
I think could be their master plan, but USF's got to hold up their end of the bargain. But
yeah,
like out of conference, much easier. I think conference could be easier because it depends on what you get in the draw.
Also, I'll put easier in quotes considering USF has won 2 games all in 2 FBS game, 1 FBS game in 3 years. So, easier is in comparison to this year.
It's relative.
And as MJW points out, but he claimed he had depth this year. Exactly.
Yeah,
that's the other side of the coin is you claim you had all this depth, and now where is the depth when it's needed? So that's the other side of the coin.
And we talked about that earlier in the year. It was all spring. It was like, I finally got a real Division I team. We got enough, and then, well, we're really injured, guys. Like, it's like, okay, which one is it? But they are injured, and backups are backups for a reason, right?
Yep.
So.
As we crack over the hour 5-minute mark, good luck, Vito, editing this thing. Let's get into predictions and we'll wrap up the show. Does Jeff Scott have to make a bowl game next season to move forward?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. If you give him a pass this year, you've got to show something real next year. Like
with that out of conference.
If you say, listen, tough schedule, a lot of injuries, depth wasn't quite as good as you thought. It's got to show up next year. Or it's over. Like year 4, you can't win 6 against a much easier schedule. I think that's kind of what's going to change.
That's curtains.
With like a bunch of if Weaver comes back, like you're pretty loaded on offense.
Western Kentucky, Alabama, FAMU or Bethune?
FAMU, UConn.
FAMU, UConn. I mean, UConn technically could go bowling this year, so who knows if that's going to be
You say Western Kentucky?
Yeah.
Yeah, they very well could lose their head coach. Yeah, he might be a hot commodity with some of these jobs. I know you're a big fan.
Yeah.
But
we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, at worst, 2-2.
At worst. At worst. But yeah, let's get to predictions. So Vito, as the guest, you'll get to pick first. All right. So USF is a 3-point favorite right now. What is your prediction for USF at Temple, 2 p.m. ESPNU?
Man, I feel like I'm going to be the Steeg here. I'm not going to do the bit, but I do think USF finally wins. It's against Temple again, and I'm going to say 38-28.
38-28 USF. Vito. Okay. Seth, what about yourself? You were 8 points away from the spread last week.
That's what I really want. I'm really upset because not only did it screw up the pick on the other show where I had USF not covering, it also ruined. I had just about the perfect score last week, so it was a real double whammy for me.
Mm-hmm.
The back door, it always hurts, right? So, I think this week, right? I think I'm gonna go 34-21 USF. Let's say, let's do that. 30. Okay, all right.
It's like chess. Once your hands off.
Vito, Vito has been on the show in a while, but every time he was on, his margin was always very close to what I wanted to pick, and he always beats me. I was thinking like 10-point margin. But yeah, I'll go 30. Let's go. What did I say? 31.
34-21.
Let's do that. That's fine.
Okay. I think this offense. I don't think this offense cracks 30.
Yeah, I feel bad now that I've said it.
Yeah, but the run. Never mind. Sorry, I won't. There's no justification with these, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just. I don't think the offense cracks 30. I think it's 28-21 USF. I just don't think USF has the defense to stop an atrocious offense is really what it boils down to. I think the offense will do just enough. But Seth, you and I are putting our perfect record on the line here, picking USF in this game. So
we've been pretty good going back since like 2020, I think.
Yeah.
We've had like
I
one
would,
or two.
Dare I say we are like 25-4.
I think it's even better than that. I think it might be 2 games.
Making that money.
If we pick the game straight up, I think it'd be all right. That's it.
I like it, Ricky. I almost went there. 24-31. I was close.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good guess.
I think it's in that range, right? What's the over under? Is like 51.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in that range a little bit.
Yep. I mean, that's fair. That's real fair. All right, let's sign off here. Appreciate you, Vito, hopping on, joining us. With Steeg out at a play, you were kind enough to sub in and give us the 3-man weave that we so desperately like during these podcasts. So I appreciate you joining us and for everything that you do on the podcast to make sure this thing literally goes out to the dozens of people that listen.
There are dozens of us.
there are dozens of us that
I just want
listen.
is it a bad omen that a black cat walked through while we were talking about this game?
It happens all the time, so maybe.
It's Vito's fault. It's all Vito's fault.
That makes sense. Well, for Seth, Vito, has been a pleasure. Nathan Bond signing off. Thank you for tuning in, listening. Make sure you download, subscribe, Apple iTunes, podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at StampedeSBN. Signing off. This has been another edition of the Bulluminati podcast. Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.
Go Bulls, baby.